Serengeti, the real fight for survival in the wild. A single misstep, 1 second of oxygen deficit, or a mistimed water intake cycle. At this site, every error results in shutdown of a biological system. A cheetah maintains stillness, committing 100% of stored calories to an attack cycle with an 80% failure rate. A male lion marked with dense scar tissue manages territory through presence pressure. A giraffe, with radar-level visibility from 16 feet above ground, must lower its center of gravity. In doing so, it exposes the cervical vertebrae within operational range of specialized predator units. The cheetah is not a typical large cat. Within the Serengeti ecosystem, it represents extreme specialization. If the lion embodies brute force and the leopard operates as a tactical specialist, the cheetah functions as a biological projectile optimized for one objective: explosive speed. Every parameter of its body reduces load. A lightweight skeletal frame lowers total mass. Non-retractable claws act as traction spikes, gripping the dry surface of the Mara River basin. The spine functions as a tension spring. Each stride can extend up to 23 feet. This specialization includes severe trade-offs. The cheetah does not possess bone-crushing jaws or heavy defensive muscle layers. When movement stops, it becomes one of the most vulnerable carnivores in its class. On the savannah, energy is the highest value currency. The cheetah spends it at maximum rate. Each sprint burns nearly all stored calories. Hunting behavior does not operate on impulse. It follows strict survival calculation.
The ideal activation distance is 330 feet. If the starting gap exceeds this range, The cheetah remains still to conserve reserves.
If too far, the cooling system reaches overload before contact. If too close, the prey detects risk and eliminates acceleration advantage. Stillness represents risk management. A flawed launch creates an unrecoverable calorie debt. When all variables align, attack mode activates. Within the first 3 seconds, speed reaches 60 miles per hour. This acceleration neutralizes resistance from a Thompson gazelle at the starting phase. The primary obstacle is not speed, it is movement vector. The cheetah is engineered for linear motion. Gazelles evolved for rapid zigzag direction change. Each abrupt turn increases core temperature sharply. The cooling system has limited efficiency. When blood temperature exceeds 105 degrees Fahrenheit, the brain initiates shutdown to prevent physiological overheating. If the target endures beyond 30 seconds, the cheetah exits the hunt cycle due to exhaustion. After the sprint, the cheetah enters its most vulnerable state. It requires at least 20 minutes to lower core temperature to safe range. During this window, lions or hyenas frequently seize the carcass. The cheetah cannot engage in conflict. Any structural injury permanently removes maximum speed capability. The genetic design functions as a double-edged system. Cub mortality reaches 90% due to fragile body structure under environmental pressure. The cheetah does not dominate through force. It survives within narrow gaps of the system by selecting the correct moment and executing it with precision. In its world, accuracy is not optional. It is the only access to another day of survival. In Serengeti National Park, the leopard does not operate as a permanent owner. Every biological advantage it possesses, from near total concealment to powerful shoulder muscles, serves a single purpose. That purpose is risk management. after the target has been brought down. For the leopard, killing the prey is not the most dangerous phase. Real pressure begins the moment the prey's heart stops. In an environment with constant density of scavengers and apex predators such as lions, a carcass becomes a concentration point of mechanical risk. The leopard does not survive by killing efficiently. It survives by extending the time it can retain a meal before larger forces compel withdrawal. Food for this species is a temporary asset. It does not hunt only to gain energy. It hunts to purchase additional survival time. No carcass, regardless of how well concealed, is ever fully secure. The most characteristic behavior is moving the kill upward. The physical reality is direct. Climbing a tree is not victory. It is delay. Dragging a 132-pound antelope to a height of 16 feet does not eliminate all threats. It reduces the number of opponents that can access the carcass immediately. Each vertical foot requires a large expenditure of muscular energy. The leopard executes a trade. Stored energy is exchanged for temporary safety. What it requires is time. The cost is biological exhaustion. In Serengeti, the longest surviving individual is not necessarily the most effective killer. It is the one that understands when to leave. All hunting effort becomes irrelevant if the post-kill interval is not controlled. In the natural system, the ability to abandon is the highest expression of survival instinct. Every hunt by the spotted hyena, crocuta, begins while the target remains mechanically intact. A 551-pound wildebeest still retains full counterforce capability, with sufficient strength to control muscle groups and select movement direction. No bite has occurred. No blood has been spilled. Yet, the process of system collapse has already been initiated. For hyenas, the objective is not a rapid kill. The objective is sustained erosion until the prey can no longer remain upright. Hyenas enter the scene not as direct attackers, but as constant background pressure. They maintain a distance close enough to deny recovery, yet far enough to avoid triggering an early fight or flight response. Under this pressure, the prey alters behavior involuntarily. It runs faster than required. It stops abruptly. It changes direction repeatedly. Each minor adjustment results in significant caloric loss. In natural systems, prolonged presence by hyenas produces greater lethality than any single act of violence. As energy reserves reach minimum thresholds, neural processing begins to degrade. The prey selects suboptimal running paths. Reaction time slows in response to terrain variation, such as depressions or water channels. Biological precision is stripped away by exhaustion. An organism evolved for escape now violates its own survival parameters under accumulated pressure. In the terminal phase, the target is not defeated by brute force. It collapses because biological systems cease operation. When hind limb muscles are immobilized by lactic acid accumulation and circulation reaches structural failure, the prey becomes stationary. Life persists, but motor control is lost. In the Serengeti, hyenas are specialists in exhaustion management. They do not overcome opponents with strength. They overcome them with time. In the world of African wild dogs, Lycaon pictus, the concept of a single individual does not exist. There is no strongest, fastest, or most aggressive animal that dominates. All survival value emerges only within formation. An individual separated from the pack faces an almost absolute risk of death. Here, the story has no main character. The main character is the system. Operation begins with maintaining maximum contact density. Wild dogs move in tight clusters and rest at minimal distances. No action originates from unilateral commands by a leader. Behavior forms through repeated actions and distinctive vocal signals. When the number of individuals in agreement reaches a critical threshold, the entire system shifts state. There is no spontaneous hunt. An attack cycle occurs only when the entire mechanism is synchronized and ready. During attack, wild dogs do not require stealth approach or rapid killing strikes. Their strategy is to break the defensive capacity of the target by diversifying threat vectors. The prey, often an impala weighing 110 pounds, is pushed into cognitive overload. It cannot identify a single focal point for defense. When the opponent loses the ability to select an effective defensive direction, the wild dog system begins to tighten containment. True strength lies in the rotation mechanism. During extended pursuit, any individual reaching fatigue threshold automatically withdraws. Immediately, another individual with higher energy assumes the lead position. System performance never declines, even as components are expended. The prey confronts an entity that maintains full operational energy. Meanwhile, its own oxygen capacity diminishes each second. The outcome results from cumulative overlap of small actions that are continuous and unrelenting. When the target collapses, consumption order is enforced by biological priority rules. Juveniles and weaker individuals receive access to protein first. This mechanism preserves genetic continuity and maintains system numbers. Wild dogs do not rely on vocal dominance displays. This error-free coordination is what compels all competitors in the Serengeti to yield space. This collective lifestyle carries severe cost. Wild dogs are entirely dependent on the network. Loss of connection equals loss of everything. The system self-regulates by eliminating individual risk. Any member that disrupts formation or reduces performance is removed. Despite achieving the highest hunting success rate on the plains, reaching up to 80%, pressure from larger competitors and disease constantly threatens to erase entire units. In the Serengeti, wild dogs demonstrate that strength does not originate from exceptional individuals. They persist because no single component is allowed to outweigh the pack. In nature, survival sometimes requires elimination of self to become part of a greater machine. In natural ecosystems, energy is the most expensive currency. A male lion weighing approximately 419 pounds does not waste this resource on meaningless pursuits. Remaining motionless for up to 20 hours each day is not inactivity. It is an active state of risk management. Boundary presence alone, body scent on marking points, or a timely head lift is sufficient to transmit a warning signal. True power does not reside in the act of killing prey. It resides in the ability to establish psychological barriers that cause competitors to abandon intent. Observe the injuries on the face and hind limbs. These are not accidental tears. They are field data. Each scar documents an instance in which this position was challenged. In every case, the challenger failed to disrupt the existing order. A male lion operates under constant pressure filtering. Females monitor it to assess protection capacity. Nomadic males track it while waiting for the smallest biological error. For the dominant individual, territorial boundaries outweigh any single protein source. Losing one antelope represents short-term caloric loss. Losing 1 yard of boundary represents systemic collapse. Territory loss equals loss of pride control and loss of genetic continuation opportunity. Every resting posture, therefore, contains latent defense. The nervous system remains continuously attuned to savannah vibration. It does not hunt to survive. It defends boundaries to be permitted to exist. Most conflicts are resolved before physical contact occurs. A direct stare or a low-frequency roar that vibrates the chest from a distance of approximately 164 feet is sufficient to end rebellion. When deterrent signals fail, physical conflict becomes mandatory. In male confrontation, there is no margin for error. A deep injury to the hind limb immediately converts a ruler into a scavenger target. Victory must be severe enough to ensure that resistance carries an unpayable cost. The greatest pressure on a male lion is not death, it is structural replacement. Once dominance weakens, younger males advance as a mechanical wave. All dependent offspring are removed immediately to establish a new genetic order. Cub protection is not performed through emotion. It is maintained by sustaining an image of invulnerability. Each sunset that passes with dominance intact extends the empire by another 24 hours. The most effective power is power that does not require constant demonstration. A stable male lion functions as the anchor that prevents pride disintegration. Time remains the only variable that mass and muscle cannot defeat. The question is never whether dominance will end. The question is how it will end. A male lion survives through risk management. The dominant individual is not the one that attacks most frequently. It is the one that forces every rival to calculate whether an attack is worth initiating at this moment. The Serengeti savannah does not operate solely on pursuit cycles. Among species that prioritize speed stands the Cape buffalo, a biomass unit weighing nearly 1,984 pounds. This species does not exist in a state of constant evasion. They move slowly, maintain tight formation, and do not overreact to the presence of lions. In the buffalo ecosystem, the narrative does not begin with being hunted. It begins with an assertion. This is not a species that runs to survive. This is an organism that survives by forcing predators to pay with structural injury. A single individual is an unpredictable threat, but an entire buffalo herd is a physically impenetrable entity. Each animal functions as a module within a large collision mass. When risk emerges, buffalo do not turn away. They stop, face the threat directly, and preserve formation integrity. Their strength does not lie in speed. It lies in the capacity to absorb impact and counterattack at close range. The horn structure of the Cape buffalo represents a defensive evolutionary system. The horn boss covers the top of the skull as a single block of bone and keratin. This structure functions as both weapon and barrier. When the herd turns its heads in unison, all biological weak points are sealed. To reach soft tissue, a predator must breach a dense bone barrier capable of lifting a 419-pound male lion off the ground through force generated by massive neck musculature. In the Serengeti, lions do not always control engagement. Many hunting cycles are terminated during the observation phase. This does not occur because buffalo possess high speed. It occurs because the risk index for injury is excessive. A direct horn strike, a trampling impact that fractures ribs, or a deep laceration is sufficient. Any error can remove a lion from locomotion. For a predator, injury equals indirect death. Lions activate attacks only when energy cost remains lower than expected nutritional return. When buffalo counterattack, savannah logic reverses. They do not require extended pursuit. They require a single moment of physical confrontation. The herd forms a defensive array to shield calves and biologically weakened individuals at the center. Buffalo survive by converting hunts into unprofitable events. They do not need to kill lions. They only need lions to recognize the cost as unacceptable. Cape buffalo do not dominate the savannah through speed or concealment. They persist by disrupting standard predation logic through confrontation readiness. This demonstrates that in an environment filled with specialized predators, survival requires proof. Attacking this species represents a fatal error. In the Serengeti, power belongs to organisms that transform themselves into unconquerable targets. In natural ecosystems, height is not only a dimension, it functions as an intelligence advantage. When an organism stands at the height of a two-story structure, the Serengeti savanna offers few concealed movements. The giraffe possesses elevated visual range that allows detection of lion movement at distances where other species perceive only dust. It does not operate in constant evasion. Its stability comes from information held before competitors. Maximum height carries a severe biological cost. To push blood to a brain positioned nearly 10 feet above the heart, the circulatory system operates at pressures near 280 over 180 millimeters of mercury. This value is approximately double that of humans. This specialization creates a survival paradox. The giraffe is rarely removed by lack of speed. It is most often removed by an unavoidable biological requirement. It must lower its body to drink water. Thirst represents the most dangerous tactical bottleneck. To drink, the giraffe must perform a high-risk mechanical action It spreads its front legs and lowers the neck toward ground level. In this moment, all long-range visual advantage disappears. More critically, the ability to deliver kicks with impact forces measured in thousands of joules becomes unavailable because the center of mass drops to its lowest point. This is when the lion hunting cycle activates. Predators do not rely on pursuit. They wait for the moment when body structure reaches maximum physical vulnerability. When an attack occurs in this position, the giraffe mass of more than 2,200 pounds becomes a liability. Standing immediately against gravity becomes a difficult physical problem under time constraint. System failure often does not result from the first bite. It results from loss of balance or slipping caused by reflex movement on unstable terrain. Falling removes all accumulated biological advantages. On the ground, the long neck that functioned as an observation platform becomes the most exposed target for concentrated force. This creates a harsh survival calculation. Stopping water intake leads to death by exhaustion. Drinking requires entry into confrontation with defensive systems disabled. Calves face increased pressure because they have not reached sufficient height for long-range detection. They also lack muscle force for effective defense. Within the population, loose group structure requires each individual to manage risk independently without collective support. The giraffe demonstrates a fundamental principle. No advantage remains permanent in nature. A single mandatory physiological action can erase benefits accumulated over millions of years of evolution. The species persists not through perfection, it persists by delaying its moment of vulnerability as long as possible. In the Serengeti, survival often depends on recognizing that the greatest advantage can also become the variable that ends life most rapidly. In the Amazon rainforest, maximum speed is a non-functional parameter. Visibility is fragmented by dense vegetation. Sound is dampened by high humidity and decomposing plant matter. The jaguar is not evolved for long-distance pursuit. It is a compact mass of muscle optimized for explosive force. Over extremely short range. Here, the rule is simple. If the first attack cycle does not terminate the target, the hunt is considered an energy failure. The hunting cycle begins by eliminating physical presence. The jaguar does not need to maintain a constant low profile. Its rosette coat pattern functions as an optimized camouflage system that dissolves its outline within shifting light beneath the canopy. The target cannot identify risk until distance collapses beyond recovery of a safe position. The jaguar does not operate through endurance, erosion, or sustained pressure. It executes a single, decisive calculation at the moment of contact. Among large cats, the jaguar possesses a unique mechanical tool. Its bite force reaches approximately 1,500 pounds per square inches. While lions or leopards target the trachea to induce suffocation, a time-intensive process, the jaguar selects the shortest mechanical pathway. It penetrates the cranial bone structure or fractures the reinforced shell of turtles. By attacking the central nervous system directly, it produces immediate system termination. One forceful impulse, one structural bone failure, the biological system of the target ceases operation on sight. The jaguar extends beyond conventional feline environmental limits. In dense rainforest, display behavior is tactically destructive. The jaguar does not roar to assert territorial boundaries. Its presence is registered through sudden silence among indicator species such as birds and primates. This is a self-contained system operating at peak efficiency in complete solitude. Each hunt follows a binary outcome model: total success or total failure. No intermediate state exists. The jaguar survives by optimizing every movement, demonstrating that in high cover environments, mechanical precision holds greater survival value than raw speed. It does not need to be seen to establish dominance. It requires only a single jaw closure cycle to end the sequence. Within the Amazon basin, in stagnant waters, visibility is nearly eliminated. Turbid water and decomposing vegetation absorb light and disrupt sound transmission. This confrontation does not begin as an active hunting strategy. It originates from an accidental physical encounter. The green anaconda and the black caiman do not seek one another for energy intake. This is a scenario where two apex organisms enter a space where both face potential elimination. In this environment, delayed threat recognition removes all tactical choice. When the anaconda and the caiman register each other, distance has already collapsed. There is no assessment phase, only direct physical contact between two massive muscular systems. Below the surface, the anaconda length of approximately 29.5 feet becomes the controlling variable. One organism possesses rigid keratin armor with limited flexibility. The other functions as a biological restraint system designed to lock movement. The conflict rapidly converts into a calculation of oxygen and pressure. The anaconda does not eliminate through speed. It eliminates through hydraulic compression. It envelops the caiman body structure and tightens successive coils to interrupt respiration cycles. In response, the caiman applies jaw force. However, in low visibility conditions, locating a critical target zone on a smooth moving body becomes a mechanical challenge. Both organisms become trapped in a feedback loop. The anaconda must maintain constant pressure. The caiman expends oxygen reserves with each rotational movement. Each constriction cycle functions as a stability test. If pressure decreases for even 1 second, the caiman can activate jaws capable of crushing bone structure. The anaconda operates as a hydraulic press, continuously adjusting anchor points to suppress counter reflexes. As duration increases, mortality risk no longer arises from external injury. It emerges from total circulatory exhaustion and lactic acid accumulation within muscle tissue. In the Amazon, encounters of this type represent environmental error rather than optimal survival strategy. Resolution typically occurs through reluctant disengagement. The anaconda may release constriction when pulmonary oxygen reaches critical threshold, or the caiman withdraws with severe internal trauma. No organism exits the mud as an absolute victor. Both pay a high energy cost and face infection risk from torn tissue. These collisions do not create dominance. They reinforce invisible boundaries between species. Each encounter serves as a reminder of muscular power limitations. In this harsh system, survival does not always require eliminating the opponent. At times, peak instinct lies in disengaging before biological systems collapse. The strongest organism is the one that retains sufficient energy to submerge back into darkness after a conflict without resolution.